Alright, now it's time for Chapter 5. Happy 4th of July, everybody, by the way. Or, at least at the time of recording, it's the 4th of July. By the time this uploads, it's probably going to be like 5 days later because YouTube has been like really weird with uploading the other chapters. So, yeah, happy 4th of July, or belated, whenever this is going to get uploaded. So, anyway, previously on Empress Theresa, we had the Coca-Cola chapter where she was just kind of walking about, minding her own business, and then suddenly got kidnapped by a bunch of like officials or whatever, and then they're just like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna blow you up with an atom bomb," and she like has like, she's like, of course, like kind of scared because I mean, it's a freaking atom bomb, and starts talking about God, like, kind of seeing her life flash before her eyes, apparently thinking about Steve, who she knows very much on a very deep and tragic and emotional level, even though he said, like, what, five things? Or at least as far as we know, because that's the thing, like, she just, like, it's like a summary of itself. She just summarizes the stuff that it would have been interesting to see go through with her character. But anyway, she gets 12 Coke bottles that they, for some reason, let her have for, like, 3 trips, and then stuck them under her like coat and then like got out and then like she was like what, like 42,000 something feet in the 4,200 like feet in the sky or something, and managed to like land right into the water and be perfectly fine. I mean, either Hal gave her super endurance that we've never heard before until now, or Norman Bouton is actually one of those people that thinks if you land in water it's perfectly fine, like it's Minecraft. No, like that, like there would be nothing left of her, of course, if that's what he believes in. But anyway, time for chapter 5. This one's kind of long. Like last we saw, she said she passed out in the water. So let's see where we go. I woke up and remembered my horrible experience in the water. I cried and violently thrashed around. Memory can be as bad as the experience itself, and this experience was terrible. In a minute I calmed down. I was in a hospital room. Some electrodes were attached to my head. There were doctors and nurses around me, and I recognized Peter Blair, the popular Prime Minister of England, whom I'd often seen on the news. I slammed my head on the mattress in frustration. For 8 years I had kept Hal a secret. My life was ruined. All I wanted was a quiet life. I didn't get it. What was I supposed to do next? I'll bet my secret is out. It is. Terrific. Some maniac will kill me in a week. How did you get me in time? We didn't. You've been dead for 2 weeks. What? That can't happen. It did. A most remarkable story. So I went through all that for nothing? I was referring to my kidnapping and fall from the plane. What else would you be referring to? I'm afraid so. Could my anonymity, I am so bad with words. Anonymity, whatever, anonymity, still be preserved? I'll bet. I'll bet there's a lot of news stories about me. About 1 million if you include all languages around the world. You are discussed continuously. No anonymity, I think that's the word. Anybody say anything bad about me? No, I have seen nothing negative. I knew I might become famous and kept myself squeaky clean. People with problems can be interesting too. Yeah, well, people with problems don't change the world. What are you talking about? There's plenty of people that can, like, overcome things and whatever. Anyway, his eyes opened up. What I said surprised him. It was as if the concept was new to him. I saw the nurses were also staring at me. I'd said something important. What did I say? The Prime Minister turned his back and moved away a few feet. He seemed to be pondering something. What the heck was going on in the world? He turned around again and smiled. It hadn't occurred to me. Perhaps only the kind of person you want to be can do what's needed. What's needed? Later. I'll leave you with the nurses. He left with the doctors. Nurses took off the electrocephalograph electrodes from my head. I heard a large crowd of people cheering me. The nurses took other things off me, including a thermometer out of my you-know-what, and brushed my hair. I was still wearing the clothes I had when I fell in the ocean. I noticed my clothes were stained with reddish-brown stuff. What is this? I asked. Blood. Peter Blair came back into the room. By now, I was sitting in a chair, chatting with the nurses. "How are you?" asked Blair. "I'm good." "Any nausea?" Next page. "No." Why did he ask that? "Where am I?" "In London. This hospital is on the periphery of the city. We couldn't bring you into the heart of London. The traffic obstruction would have been horrendous." Why was I so important? Never mind. I could find out later. Maybe you're so important because of Hal and whatnot. Like, I could probably wager to guess a few things at this point. "Can I go to a hotel or something?" "We'll hold a floor of a new hotel tower for visiting dignitaries. It's yours." "Do they have shops?" "They do." "I need fresh clothes, but I don't have money." "The British nation will gladly pay. We've already spent millions on you." Everybody laughed at that, and everybody applauded that whole thing. Something else that made no sense. I could find out about it later. That made no sense. Whatever. That's just basically my catchphrase for this whole reading. Whatever. 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 Let's move on. The more I ponder on it, the worse it's gonna be. Yeah, I need something to eat. We can find out about it later. I need something to eat. They didn't feed me last day. Or they didn't feed me my last day. Except for all that tuna and whatnot, but I guess maybe that was a couple days ago. "The nurses will get you something." He left again, and the nurses got me some fish and chips. Ooh, good choice. Blair came back. "How's your stomach taking the food?" "Fine. That's the second time you asked that." "The doctors warned me you might revive briefly, but soon sicken and die. It would be like radiation sickness. First nausea within the hour, then rapid deterioration. It can't be stopped. I'm glad it didn't happen." What? More mysteries to find out later. Can I go to the hotel now? "Of course. But first, would you mind coming upstairs to the sunroom and let television cameras see you? Your family will see you." Sure. Having Steve and my parents see that I was alive was too good to resist. The PM and I left the room. The PM's people followed as we walked towards the center of the building with greatly excited hospital staff and visitors cheering. There was a staircase near the front entrance. We went up to the second floor and walked to a patient lounge, which had observation windows on 3 sides. This hospital was on the outskirts of London, with plenty of open space in front. Peter Blair guided me to the center window. A crowd of people large enough to fill a dozen NFL stadiums waited. In a moment they spotted me and cheered. Everybody cheered. 500,000 people were cheering me. I felt a thrill going up and down my spine. I was not used to this kind of attention and had no set responses like a seasoned celebrity would. I thought she's gotten attention all the time. I stared out at them, amazed that they would find me so interesting. This is my usual youthful situation of wondering where I was going. "Where are they?" I asked the PM. "It took 14 hours to revive you." People like that. The suspense, you know? Television camera crews had claimed the spaces closest to the hospital and aimed their cameras at me. The world saw me standing in my blood-soaked clothes. People held up hand-printed signs, "Hello," "Welcome," and "Come to Ireland," in all caps, were typical comments. One woman held a sign that read, "Save us." Save us? What's that about? "The wind is stopping everywhere." Oh, is this the tilt thing I'm thinking of? Where's everywhere? All over the world. I looked and saw those spherical cotton ball clouds that form where there's no wind. They weren't moving at all. They just hung there. It was like looking at a postcard. Wait, so they're asking her to stop all this wind weather stuff? Like, at this point, why would they think that she could do something like that? She, as far as they know, she's just like a crazy survivor, right? It's only like the higher-ups that know about Hal. Anyway. "What does it mean?" I asked. "No wind means no rain and no food." "How bad will it get?" "We may see the whole world starve to death." Is this the alien thing coming on? The television cameras must have taken close-ups of my face. The crowd became silent as they waited to see if I lost it. "How will it happen?" Only the coastlines will have enough rain to grow a few crops. The inland areas will turn to desert. Europe and the United States can survive for 2 years by marshaling all their resources. Every square inch of the coast will be cultivated. Unfortunately, the rest of the world can't do this. We'll lose 1 billion people in the first year. Beyond 2 years, our economics totally collapse. Everybody abandons their jobs. All social structures break down. It's every man for himself. All animals are slaughtered for food. With birds extinct, the insects will multiply 1,000 times, spreading uncontrollable epidemics. In 5 years, there will be few of us left. The world is dying. Sorry. Horrible. Inconceivable! And I was supposed to do something about this mess? I didn't even know how it happened. The crowd was absolutely still. They knew I'd just learned the facts of life, and my recognition showed I didn't know what to do. This unimaginable horror was likely to be their future. No wonder they came here to see me. I walked inside and stopped at a nurse's station. Blair followed and stood next to me. He was the world's lifeline to me now, if that meant anything. He had to suspect by now that I didn't know what to do with the wind situation. Somehow he would have to pull a miracle out of me. I feel like running away, I said. You couldn't stop me. I know we couldn't. All I wanted to do was be a high school math teacher. Okay, I never knew that. You can teach millions something more important. When the world falls apart around us, we look within ourselves and find ourselves. Show us what's within you. Ah, that's the quote at the back of the page, or at the beginning of the book, that we read in chapter 1. Anyway, show us what's within you. I had no response to that. How did I know it was within me? Nothing could have prepared me for this kind of challenge. The world waits to hear you. Would you agree to speak with me on television? The topic is how. The government hasn't figured out how after 8 years. You want me to do it in 1 day? Not 1 day. We must begin. I need to see everything that happened in the last 2 weeks. Not 1 day. I need to see everything that happened. Agreed. Okay, that was the Prime Minister talking. I got myself mixed up. I need to see everything that happened in the last 2 weeks. Agreed. I'll speak to the BBC. They'll put together a montage for... Wait, never mind. It was her talking. I'll see everything that happened in the last 2 weeks. Agreed. I'll speak to the BBC. They'll put together a montage for you. I need to see it, the exact sequence it happened, to guess what Hal was thinking. Agreed. We'll see his thinking. This is what I was afraid of. I knew if my secret... This isn't narration, this is actually quoted. This is what I was afraid of. I knew if my secret came out, people would never let me alone. I never wanted to be famous. I don't want television cameras in my face. I just want to live privately. Is there anything wrong with that? We get it. You say that like every other sentence whenever your fame is brought up. There isn't. We'll shelter you as much as possible. Shall we go to the hotel? Sure. It won't take me long to pack. He laughed. I had nothing but the clothes on my back. London's skyscraper district had a new 60-story hotel with 2,000 rooms and every amenity. I don't know. We arrived unexpected. A crowd gathered immediately as we walked to the desk. Mrs. Hartley needs a diplomatic room on the government floor, the PM announced. Right, because it's Hartley now. The desk clerk signaled a young female hotel worker to follow. We went up to the 58th floor. My room was a suite with 2 bedrooms, a separate sitting room, and a kitchenette. It was far better than any hotel I stayed in before. The desk clerk, who also went up with us, said, "Nancy will attend you this evening." Nancy was the hotel worker. "At your service, Mum," she said to me, very excited about her assignment. Mum? Okay. The men left us 2 girls alone. Blair said it would take some time for the BBC to put together the montage. There was a lot of film to edit. I turned on the television, and of course, most channels were talking about me. Of course, they were talking about me. I stumbled upon a channel that was showing the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton. That happened a long time ago, I said to Nancy. Why are they showing it now? People need cheering up. It's been a horrible week. Royal weddings are rare and glorious. They have been showing it all week. Well, yeah, America had no royal weddings, just the trash weddings of tabloid celebrities, if anybody cared. I watched the highlights of the wedding. The commentators gave much related information. I especially noticed how nervous Kate was. After seeing everything, I turned to a priority. I need some clothes. These are 2 weeks old. I must smell like hell. While the world's people waited to hear whether their death sentence was commuted, Nancy and I went shopping. Also, I want to point out in the last chapter, heaven was capitalized with an H, but hell right now is lowercase. Technically, they're description terms, and neither should really be capitalized, but I don't know. Lack of consistency. Alright, Nancy and I went shopping. A swarm of security people hastily summoned by Blair kept the curious away. I selected 4 skirt and jacket outfits, lots of casual clothes, accessories, underwear, and every kind of personal item. I broke a world speed record in doing all this in 110 minutes. What kind of record is that? The fastest you can pick out your own clothes to your own liking in 110 minutes? I mean, I'm sure a man could probably do it faster. I'm not saying it because, like, oh, yeah, men better than women. I mean it just because men, like, just get, like, a t-shirt and jeans or something, and that's it. The PM was alerted when I returned to my suite. He came over right away, but I had jumped into the shower when Nancy let him into the room. He waited patiently for half an hour. I came out in a flattering Irish green dress. A tribute to my ancestors, I said with a smile. Okay, so she's apparently got Irish blood. I didn't know that until now. Tribute to your ancestors, I said with a smile. My hair was still damp and a mess, but already expanding out to that mane I had started many that had startled many. Sorry. Very lovely, the PM said. I presented the final section of the montage being prepared for you. It will be playing in a few minutes. After it's done, could we appear on the air 20 minutes later? Sure. Next page. Excellent. I'll arrange it. Very lovely, he repeated and left. He looked encouraged by my cooperation. The phone rang. With 1 million people wanting to talk to me, there could only be one person who got through. That has to be my husband, I said to Nancy. Tell him we can't talk on the phone. I don't know who's talking. Maybe Nancy? Tell him we can't talk on the phone. People are listening. Tell him no matter what I say tonight, I can change my mind tomorrow. The first person to speak on the BBC montage was an anchorman who had recorded his comments in a documentary on an earlier date. United States Navy Admiral Ruck was ordered to the White House to meet the president. President Martin told him sometimes a person was a clear and present danger to the United States, but could not be neutralized by ordinary rules of law. What did the Admiral think was done with such people? The Admiral said he had no choice. The President said such a person was... The Admiral said he had no choice. The President said such a person was eliminated. One person could not be allowed to endanger 300 million Americans. I don't know who's talking right now. The Admiral was told such a person was a problem now. The plane was being prepared with an atom bomb. Would the Admiral cooperate in launching the plane from his ship, the U.S. carrier Ronald Reagan? I don't know who's talking right now, by the way, it's just showing quotes right now. The Admiral asked why the person was being executed, and in this extreme manner? Why is that a question? He told the President would explain it on television immediately after the bomb was detonated. Other countries would detect it. The President had to explain it. Would the Admiral cooperate? He said he would, but he didn't like it. Different person talking, I guess. The President responded nobody was enjoying the operation, but if the Admiral was ordered to launch a nuclear missile to kill 1 million people, he would do it. Okay, another quotation. The Admiral agreed to bring the Ronald Reagan around South America to the Atlantic for the operation. An F-22 Raptor was prepared with a bomb and remote control and loaded on the Admiral's ship. Then it was a matter of waiting for an opportunity to abduct Mrs. Hartley. The next person speaking in the BBC montage was another announcer. Theresa Hartley was seized from her car on Saturday, June 12th, and put in a helicopter. The witnesses who had seen Theresa Hartley's car forced to stop and the government men forcing her into the van at gunpoint called 911 to report a kidnapping. The police arrived in 5 minutes and were astonished at the witnesses' story. Usually a kidnapping was committed by 1 or 2 men. This time 6 kidnappers were seen, and there had to be at least 1 more in the van. The police wasted no time in calling the FBI. Kidnapping was a federal offense in America. Investigation of kidnappings must include all the states. I thought this was like government orders or something. Was this like some secret group or something? I don't know. I've been like tuning out a lot of this. 2 FBI agents, each with an assistant, came over from Boston. They listened to the strange story and in turn questioned the witnesses. This could not be the act of criminals. A quick check showed Theresa's family had no ransom money to speak of. The kidnappers sounded like federal agents. Who were they? Who were those people in the numerous cars rushing past the scene minutes later? Why was Theresa Hartley so important? Mystery upon mystery upon mystery. One agent said, if this was federal and we uncover it, it will make Watergate look like a tea party. I don't know my history, so I don't exactly know what Watergate was, but it figures, everything she does has to upstage everybody. Steve Hartley was called in to the police station to meet the FBI men and was questioned about his wife's friends and routines. He could give no reason why Theresa would be kidnapped. After a few questions about her activity, which revealed nothing, Mr. Hartley was asked if she had disk space on the Boston College computer system. Yes, she did, he told them. Thereupon, the FBI and Steve Hartley went to Boston College. A computer center technician there had the password to Mrs. Hartley's files. They found one called Mission Impossible, in all caps. It was 260 pages of mathematical jargon, completely incomprehensible to anyone but a mathematician. 4 math professors were called in to examine the file. They could not understand what it was for. Mrs. Hartley used many abbreviations and terms without definitions. If she were intending to hide her work's purpose, she did very well. The computer tech suggested the file be shared with everybody on the Boston College campus. Somebody might know what this was for. It brought no response. Theresa Hartley had been working alone. Okay, I think it's back to her narration. The BBC montage did not have information about my odyssey on the helicopter and twin-engine prop planes to the carriers, but I knew all about that. Maybe they left it out for a reason. The next part was the video of President Martin on television. My fellow Americans, a short time ago, the United States exploded a small atomic bomb in the atmosphere over the South Atlantic. It was scheduled. It was a one-time event and will not be repeated. And then, in any attempt to calm world fears, I will immediately and fully disclose the reasons for this operation. I don't understand the way these quoted. Like, I can't show it on screen, but it's like quoted in like a weird way where it shows a quotation at the beginning and then it doesn't show an end, but it shows it again, and I keep thinking that it's the same person talking. I don't know. For this operation. 15 years ago, an alien entity entered Earth. It disappeared and could not be found for 7 years. 8 years ago, it associated itself with an American named Theresa Sullivan. We observed her. The alien interacted with her, influencing her physical activity. She could not or would not explain what the alien was. We were patient, but this situation could not be tolerated indefinitely. We could not wait while this alien was as likely to be involved in hostile activities as friendly. It made no announcement to us in 15 years, which we considered an unfriendly relationship. Therefore, we destroyed it with an atomic bomb. Sadly, this young woman had to be sacrificed. The alien remained with her at all times. We could not destroy the alien without destroying her too. We put her on a plane with the fellow bomb. My fellow Americans, we took this action after careful deliberation. When we are at war, we send thousands of soldiers to their deaths. This was the loss of one person to eliminate a potential threat greater than any war. She was told what would be done. She went to her death bravely with no resistance. Her courage was magnificent. She gave credit to the human spirit. Next page, because she's such an amazing protagonist. There was no medal designed for courageous conduct in this kind of situation. But let me counsel her family by saying her dignified and brave sacrifice did more good for the world than any Medal of Honor winner. We could offer thanks from a grateful nation. So they're congratulating her for saying, "No, I'm not going to let you kill me to save the world from this alien threat." Like, if she dies, she'll be remembered as a beautiful sacrifice. She lives, she's looked at as beautifully brave or whatever. Like, wouldn't there be, like, a lot more concerns to be like, oh, like, well, we still need to kill her because it's for the greater good. Like, she just gets her shoes kissed no matter what decision she makes. And that's just delightful. I imagine Steve and my parents were crushed by this news. How horrible it must have been to learn I'd been vaporized out of existence. Nothing left. Oh yeah, so never mind. They did think that she was dead. I thought that. Who thinks she's alive and who thinks she's dead? I am so confused. Okay, so the president thinks that. Whatever. Let's just keep going. How horrible it must have been to learn I'd been vaporized out of existence, nothing left behind, no body to bury, not a trace to mourn over, no known place at which to drop a flower wreath on the water. It was as if I never existed. Terrible! Then came another shock for the world. Then came another shock for the world. There were 6,000 sailors on the Ronald Reagan. They could not keep silent, and no effort was made to make them shut up. They had cell phones connected to a satellite. That Saturday night, information was leaking out. The BBC had the phone call of a sailor who said I had bailed out of the plane. Even worse than this news, they had hidden a microphone in the collar of my jumpsuit. That's why they gave me the jumpsuit. It was optional, though, I thought. That's why they gave me the jumpsuit. They were listening to me all the time. She got out of the plane window. They heard her breathing after the bomb went off. She fell for 3.5 minutes. When she was in the cold water, she screamed her head off. Why would you scream? You'd just be freaking like grunting and everything. It logically just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, she screamed her head off, but she never said a word. She was tough. Everybody was crying. What must Steve have felt when he heard this? No question mark. My parents must have gone nuts. I cried to think about it. The BBC hurried along. The next presentation was a Senate hearing about the A-bomb explosion. The Senate Armed Services Committee convened on Tuesday morning. The BBC had videos of this hearing for me to watch. The first witness was the director of the little-known Defense Intelligence Agency. He talked about how his watchers had been keeping an eye on me since I was 10 years old. She claimed the alien jumped out at her from a fox. She claimed the alien jumped at her from a fox. We still don't know if this was true or the little girl's imagination. Excuse me. We do know something remarkable happened to her. After describing how I came to their attention, he testified there had been up to 400 people at a time assigned to watching me. He explained it was very difficult to follow somebody for years without being detected. People had to be changed frequently or be noticed. Then he got to the part that I found most interesting. The most difficult kind of tailing is following somebody around a college campus. A stranger is easily recognized, but we knew her schedule and where she would be every hour. We'd have somebody to walk by a distance of at least 100 feet to confirm her movements, except that she might not arrive somewhere at exactly the same time every day, and we had to keep our people moving. Sorry, I'm about to fall asleep. We'd send 20 or more people to a spot in 30-second intervals. One or two of them would spot her. All these people walked around the college and were never noticed? Actually, there were. Actually, they were. But never by the students. The first week Theresa was in BC, the campus police saw two of them and took them to the station. Theresa Hartley was called in. She told them to call their supervisor, who called me, and I called the president. The president called the campus police and told them to keep quiet. We'd made an agreement. Next page. I'm sorry, this is starting to get really boring for me. So, is her name Theresa Sullivan Hartley or just Theresa Hartley? Because right now in the book they're just saying Hartley, but at the beginning it said Sullivan Hartley. I don't know. Officials, I don't know. Oh crud, I forgot what the last page was. We made an agreement with the police. We told them our people were there to protect a matter of national security. We told them no more than that. Our people had DIA credentials. The police accepted them. That seemed unusual. They're accepting your people's invasion. Not at all. We pointed out to the police that our agents would be on the lockdown for suspicious characters. They were helping the campus police. The two forces were very friendly about it. And did none of these hundreds of watchers tell the police why they were watching Theresa Hartley? They didn't know. They were told not to speculate. That's incredible. At least one of them should have talked to the press. To the press? That's the interesting part, Senator. If we had only 20 watchers, some of them would think that the taxpayers' money was being wasted on something not that important. But since we had up to 400 watchers, they believed this operation was a life or death matter for the United States. And none of them broke rank. How much did this surveillance cost over 8 years? Approximately $500 million. There wasn't much more for the DIA director to say, except he hadn't known about President Martin's operation. So Jan Struthers was not part of it. Oh, so she wasn't forgotten from the story. The director was soon dismissed. I don't know who's talking. The next witness was the CIA director. It was his men that had taken me to the carrier. He said the Defense Intelligence Agency had briefed him about the alien and Theresa Hartley 4 months ago. Then the president ordered him to organize a team of agents to abduct me, to bring me to the aircraft carrier. The director said it had been difficult to assemble a team. Most men refused to participate. But you had no qualms, sir? Asked the chairman. Of course I did, but I tended to agree with the president. The situation could not be ignored. Were we in danger? Who can know, Senator? Can you tell me about whether or not we are in danger now? We have learned she escaped the plane. How could that happen? We don't know. Could she open the canopy? No, it was locked down. The release was disabled. 2 sailors at the scene will testify that. Could she break it out? Impossible. It's a 3/4-inch sheet of high tensile strength plastic. Unbreakable. Bullets bounce off it. Could she push it out? Not possible. It was held in by many steel pins. An elephant couldn't push it out. Yeah, but we know she has super strength. How did she live through the fall? Oh, okay, this is the only question that matters to me, at least. There are causes of people falling into water from great heights and surviving. It's rare. The mistake people make is thinking they should enter the water head first or feet first. Wrong. That will kill you. You need to go in, speed out, horizontally to let the entire body absorb the shock. It happened recently. An American woman fell 1,500 feet into a lake where her parachute backpack failed to open. She suffered no injuries. Is that true? Are there reports of any of that happening and I'm just ignorant? Somebody can please let me know if that has happened. How far did Theresa Hartley fall? The canopy was open at 57,900 feet. That's 11 miles. It took 3.5 minutes to reach the water. Why did she scream in the water? It was partly panic. All jumpers scream. Do they? But she never made a sound on the way down. We can't explain that. What about the cold water? Definitely painful, mostly in the bones of the extremities. It's not like they show you in the movie. It's not like they show you in the movies. Do you have a recording of the woman? Sorry, I have a stuffy nose. There was one. Admiral Ruck threw it in the ocean. Is he arrested or something? Just as well. Just as well, said the chairman. The BBC said the committee milked this witness for 1.5 hours. They asked the most detailed questions about things that were not important. I feel like most of this wasn't important, but whatever. The BBC said this was probably of no interest to me, and it was all skipped. The hearing broke for a late lunch, and a committee aide told Steve he would be called to testify at 2 o'clock. Steve's testimony had been anxiously awaited. Who better to tell the world what I had been doing with the alien than my husband? He was sworn in. The committee began on an apologetic note. We know you were called in quickly during a difficult time. We know you understand how urgently we need to know about the recent event. Steve waved his hand without saying anything. Now then, sir, can you tell us what about your wife said to the alien? That's right. I remember Jack was the New York guy, not Steve, but I'm just going to go through with it. She said nothing about it. A groan of surprise and disappointment arose from the crowd. Nothing? She never told you anything? Nothing. Not a word. Did she give hints that you didn't understand at the time? No. Did she talk about the possibility of aliens? No. Are you saying you knew and she suspected nothing? That's what I'm saying. The committee chairman didn't know what else to say. He looked from left to right, offering other committee members a chance to jump in. None would touch this one. Well, sir, we are very surprised. Is there anything you want to say? Yes. Theresa hasn't been dead 48 hours, and I have 8 messages from Hollywood offering to make a movie about her. Oh, no. Is that even legal? There won't be any movie. People like to see somebody get in trouble. I have bad news for you. Theresa never got in trouble. She was perfect in every way. I have to do like the anime simp thing. Theresa never got in trouble. She was perfect in every way. Live with it. That's a remarkable assessment. Theresa was a remarkable person. She became an adult before she became a woman. Other girls worried about diets and hairstyles. She worried about her diet and talked about her hairstyle too, bucko. She worried about being the mediator between aliens and the world. That's what her major and Mission Impossible file were about. Theresa was different from the rest of us. We won't see her kind again. The chairman obviously thought it was time to get rid of this witness. Sorry, I had to read that in my normal voice. It was Theresa talking. Thank you for coming in, sir. Steve automatically got up and walked to the door, with swarms of reporters hounding him as he walked from the Senate office building to a government car. He went back to his hotel room. The next section of the montage was about early Wednesday morning. The Ronald Reagan had arrived in Florida during the night. That young female officer who made a video of my last words was 26-year-old Lieutenant Junior Grade Virginia Connor, who was sure to be remembered. The BBC showed her video. I was waiting on the Ronald Reagan deck while the jet fighter was being brought into place. Yours truly was on screen, with my wild mane of hair blowing in the wind. Yes, she never cared about her hair as much as frickin' Steve said. Connor's voice was heard asking if I had anything to say. This was the most stupid thing ever done. I'm glad I won't be here to see what happens. Connor asked if that was all I wanted to say. Yes, I read the last chapter. If people grieve your passing, rejoice in the good you did and die like a hero going home, I feel good about who I was. I hoped Steve and my parents got some comfort from that. The screen changed to 4 talking heads on an American news talk show who debated the meaning of my remarks. Yes, we have to go into the meeting. There's got to be some very in-depth freaking stuff about this, whatever. What did I mean by something happening? Did I know what I was? Was I making it happen? Was it serious? Who could be affected? Could it be stopped? Their discussion was futile at this point. The video was bad news for President Martin. Now they'll make a movie about her, the talking heads agreed. I swear, if this actually gets adapted into a movie, oh boy, that would be an interesting thing. If anybody's got comments and made it to this point, who do you think would be a good actress for Theresa? Just can somebody tell me or ask me about that? Probably Daisy Ridley. The next hearing witness was a big surprise. My priest, Father Richard Donati. Okay, I want to talk about this right now, actually. A couple chapters ago, I said Donati as a joke, and then I went on I looked up the name on pronouncednames.com. Apparently, that's actually how it's pronounced. It is pronounced Donati. I don't know. I just think that's funny. There's our answer. Finally, it's Donati. That's apparently how it's said. My priest father, Richard Donati, was extensively documented in the files on me maintained by the DIA. He was called in as a witness. He walked into the Senate office building chamber carrying a heavy briefcase and was sworn in. Father, begin. The chairman. Father, began the chairman. You have previously advised this committee by phone that, as Theresa Hartley's priest, you cannot discuss her character except in general terms known to her acquaintances. What was she like? Alright, time for the character shilling. Everybody will tell you she was a good girl, a brilliant girl, the pride and joy of her family. If this alien's arrival was an inevitable event of the natural world, God saw to it that it associated itself with an exceptional girl. For what purpose, Father? That remains a mystery. We deal with many mysteries in my line of work. We wait for answers with trust. How long have you known her? 8 years. She first came to the rectory when she was 10. Wait. So when she met her in chapter 1, I thought she said that she already knew him at that time. I assumed that they had a history, so was that actually meant to be the first time? Well, retcon if that's the case. She came to the rectory when she was 10. Our records show you managed to be assigned to her parish church for those 8 years. Is this the norm for a priest to be resigned every 2 or 3 years? Was this a coincidence? It was arranged by Cardinal Rook. The Holy Father was interested in her case and wanted me to... Next page. Stay close to her. It was the Holy Father who arranged her full scholarship at Boston College. Theresa couldn't turn that down. By Holy Father, they're talking about God himself? Like God himself paid for her tuition? Okay. He wanted her to go to BC because it's rigidly Catholic? It isn't rigidly Catholic. 1/3 of its students are non-Catholics from all over the world. If you want to operate a large diverse university, you can't do it with a heavy hand. It was important for Theresa to get a worldly educational experience. She might have had some role in dealing with the alien in the name of humanity. She had to have wisdom. How did the Holy Father become interested in her? Cardinal Rock and I told him about how Theresa was being followed by government watchers. We saw them ourselves. We were sure she wasn't possessed. The government watchers proved her story about Hal. Hal? That's what she calls him. It's from a movie you probably remember. What did she say about Hal? Nothing much. She knew nothing about him. Did you have contact with her watchers, as they're called? Only one. A woman followed her to the rectory. She didn't give her name. I assume this is Struthers that they're talking about. What did this woman tell you? Nothing, except that many people were watching Theresa. For what reason? She didn't say. She assumed I knew. You only had Theresa's word there was a Hal? That's correct. How did you become convinced there was a Hal? Father Donati opened his briefcase and took out 3 playground horseshoes, which had been bent into twisted shapes. Certain statements had been made in this hearing about how Theresa got out of the plane. Do you think anybody could bend one of these, Senator? I doubt it. Father Donati stacked the three horseshoes together. Despite their twists, they fit perfectly on top of each other. When Theresa was 10 years old, I watched her bend all three at once. She did even more amazing feats of strength for Cardinal Rook and myself. She could hold a heavy book in one hand and squeeze until her fingertips pierced through the book from cover to cover. There seemed to be no limit to her strength. She was a baseball pitcher in high school. She could have been an NFL quarterback and scored a touchdown on every play. Are you implying she had enough strength to push out the canopy? With Hal's powers, but her own initiative, yes. The room was silent. Father Donati enjoyed watching the bug-eyed expressions on the committee's faces. Sorry, I'm just mentally preparing myself, I guess. On the committee's faces. I bet no one was more surprised than Steve. All that time, I had seemed to have the delicacy of a petite female. I could have broken his back with a single blow. The priest had an afterthought. When she was abducted, she must have known she could fight her way out. She could have killed everybody around her. She went to her death without a fight. She's a martyr. I think God's purpose in choosing her was to show how there are good people and we are worth saving. The chairman had a political savvy to give this idea a respectful moment of silence. It was the finest thing that could be said about a person. He couldn't fail to note the sad expressions on people's faces. Because everything revolves around me. How did she explain the super strength, Father? She couldn't. It was as much a mystery to her as us. What could she do? She could throw things with perfect accuracy. She threw coins into glass 20 feet away and never missed. Anything else? That's it. Did she communicate with Hal? She always denied that there was any communication. But clearly, they were aware of each other. Clearly, yes. Well, Father, this has been the strangest story I've ever heard. Have we all lost our minds? I hope not, he grinned. The BBC talked about the next development in this weird week. A small freighter, excuse me. A small freighter carrying grain from Argentina to Africa was 900 miles out to sea. The captain and his first mate were looking at the water. The wind had been noted to die out during the week. Now there was a dead calm. The water was motionless. A bridge video cam had recorded these two men's brief exchange. In words that were much discussed, the first mate asked, "Have you ever seen a calm like this? Not this time of year." Oh, this chapter is so boring, I'm sorry. The small steamer was crossing the area where I'd fallen from the fighter jet. Word got out quickly. Commercial airplanes passing over the area were asked to note this location and extent of the calm seas. It appeared that the calm area was spreading out at 18 miles an hour on the edge, broadening the width of the area 36 miles per hour. It was already thousands of miles wide. Soon it would lock up the entire Earth's weather pattern and stop the wind everywhere. Without wind, there was no way for the water vapor from the oceans to get to land fast enough to provide the rain needed to grow anything. World famine would follow. There was no way to prevent it. The BBC said Prime Minister Peter Blair sent ships to the South Atlantic to look for me. This was considered the most ridiculous naval mission of all time. Blair's folly, in quotations, said the newspaper headline. Blair's search for the Holy Grail. Anybody who had been to sea knew the impossibility of finding a body in that vast nothingness, even if it was floating on the surface. The next part of the BBC program was a real shock. That Friday night, President Martin suddenly resigned in the middle of the night and left the White House to go to his Indiana home. The Secretary of Defense was rushed to the White House because, according to the two-man rule, he had to confirm the president's identity before the nuclear missile launch codes could be activated. But for an hour, the Next page. United States had no president. Wait, I just want to double check to make sure if I'm actually on the right page. Yeah, I am. But for a while, the United States had no president while Vice President Veronica Stinson was asleep and unaware. Did I have any responsibility for this mess for not telling people about Hal when I was 10? You decide. And I don't care, to be honest. Ugh. Okay, I'm kind of sorry, but it's like, what really is there for me to say about this chapter? It was basically, what's my time code at? It was 50 minutes of exposition is kind of how it felt. It's like, it's nothing new. Like, there's nothing really new or interesting about this chapter. It's just, oh yeah, she's great, this is great, that's great, that situation was great, Steve thinks she's great, that's great. That's pretty much all it was. It's like, what do I really have to commentate on this? I mean, I guess it's just a setup for like the later chapters where it's like the end of the world and she like probably has to like use Hal or use some powers to stop it. I don't know. That's the end of this chapter. Happy 4th of July. If this gets uploaded because and YouTube decides not to be stupid. Happy 4th of July. Have a good one.